Okay, welcome everyone. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Art Commission's Region 10 Arts Project Support Review Panel, hosted by the Arts Council of Southwestern Indiana, the Region 10 Arts Partner for the Indiana Arts Commission. My name is Scott Wiley. I'm going to be your facilitator today. I am the Executive Director of Pro Bono Indiana and have the privilege of serving as the Volunteer General Counsel for the Indiana Arts Commission. And Pro Bono Indiana offers pro bono legal assistance to Indiana artists who are low income and need legal assistance in civil matters. Today is Tuesday, April 26th, and we're meeting online and streaming live for applicants and the public to observe. So good morning to all of you. And if you're accessing this later, greetings at whatever time you're watching the recording. There's no contact between the panel and the audience about the disposition of applicants before, during, or after the panel meeting. This meeting will be recorded as noted and made available upon request. At this time, I'm going to individually invite each of the panelists and our staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are in the state. So let's start with the panel, and we'll start with Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz from Bragg. I am located in Chandler, Indiana, and I am a community arts advocate. I volunteer with a lot of arts organizations in the Evansville and surrounding area.
Great. Chandler, the town that cares. Mike?
Mike, you're muted.
Oh.
I was muted that entire time, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I am Mike Linderman. I am the Western Regional Director for the State Historic Sites. I oversee Angel Mounds, are part of the New Harmony projects out there, State Historic Sites, and the Vincennes State Historic Site are under me.
Great, thanks. And Jaleesa?
Good morning. My name is Jaleesa Slade. I'm President and CEO of Slade Consulting, and I work with nonprofits in the areas of grant writing, grant research, and capacity building. I am located in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Cool. Kensington?
Good morning. My name is Kensington Blaylock Eck. I'm a theater producer, director, and educator located in Evansville and Newberg, Indiana. I'm the owner of Think Pink Productions and an educator for the EVSC.
Great, thanks. And Annie?
Hi, I'm Ann Dowie, and I am a retired art educator, and I also currently work with the New Harmony Clay Project out in New Harmony, Indiana. Thank you.
And finally, Scott.
Good morning, I'm Scott Salmon. I'm the Director of Bands at Princeton Community High School here in Princeton. I reside in Evansville, and I'm also a real estate agent with FC Tucker MG by night.
Great, thanks so much. And we'd like to now have our staff member from the Arts Council introduce herself.
Good morning. I'm Ann McKim. I'm the Executive Director of the Arts Council of Southwestern Indiana. Excuse me. And we serve as the Region 10 Arts Partner for the state of Indiana. And I'm in Evansville.
Great. Well, now we're going to go on to the review, the panel review. This is how the process is going to work. I'm going to announce the application we'll be reviewing and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I'll ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader is finished, I'll open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, that panelist will be placed on hold outside of our Zoom meeting while the application is reviewed. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores on the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. These scores will be saved automatically. Are there any questions from our panelists before we begin? Okay, seeing nothing but heads shaking no, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start today with the application from Princeton Band Boosters. The first reader is Jaleesa Slade, but does anyone have a conflict with this? Well, then we'll be saying goodbye to Scott briefly. See you, Scott. Okay, Jaleesa, you're ready to go.
Thank you. For Princeton Band Boosters in the area of artistic quality and artist support, I noted clear goals and purpose for the project. However, I did not see information on how past experience has been used to improve the project. So that was an area that wasn't clear. Noted that all contractors are from Indiana and receive financial benefit. So that's impactful. Strengths, I show that the project or the show is tailored for the group of students and used to help students develop during the season to develop their skills. Under community engagement in IDEA, I listed that I would have liked more information that was detailed information about the community and its citizens, just to have a better understanding of some of the populations that might be underserved and how they benefit. They did list that there's a large percentage of more than 50% of free or reduced lunch. So that gives us information about the financial backgrounds of some of the citizens. Noted the strength of utilizing competitive performances for feedback for their students and for their program. So that was a strength. Under project management and budget, listed very experienced staff, was very detailed to lead and carry out the project. So that gives us information on the quality that's brought into the project. Also, a very detailed timeline of events and budget showed very clear planning on the part of the staff leaders, and then also reasonable line items within the budget for the project.
Well, thank you for that, Jaleesa. That was very thorough. And our second reader on this grant application is Kensington.
All right. So I agree with so much of what she was saying, and to add on a little bit more, for the first section, the video link that the band attached to the application, I thought was very helpful in showing the caliber of the talent and the work that the students put into the program. I thought that was a really excellent piece to attach to your application. Jumping down, I had some questions that I think would help evaluate the application. Like, what specific efforts does the band make to ensure that students can participate regardless of income and financial hardship? I saw that mentioned several times throughout the application, but I'd love some more specificity about that. And I also noted that they detailed that the band is judged and adjudicated in their performances, but I also wanted to know, how does the band judge and assess the student experience and the parent and family experience, and how they're impacting the community as well? I did also note that there was a small logo that was attached as a supporting piece that didn't feel relevant to the grant as a whole. It didn't add any more information to what we had already seen written out. And then in that last section, I also wanted a little bit more clarity. I noticed there were a few fundraisers listed in the budget. Do the students participate in all of that? Are they responsible for all of those fundraisers? And if so, does that fundraising money go to help supplement the cost of their tuition to participate in band? Because they're noting that there's a high population of people who need financial support. So does that money go to support, or is that specifically IAC grant money? And that wraps it up for me.
Great. Thank you, Kensington. Does anyone have any additional new or opposing comments to add to those that were so wonderfully thorough? Thank you, guys. Okay, not seeing anyone pop up, please go ahead and finalize your scores and update your online comments. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And then, of course, we'll have to bring Scott back in, since he's going to be our first reader on the next grant. So we won't leave him in Zoom prison any longer. And there we go. Scott has returned from Zoom prison. If everyone's done, we're going to move on to our next grant application, which is for Actors Community Theater. The first reader for that is, of course, back from Zoom prison, Scott Salmon. So Scott, go right ahead when you're
Great
ready.
to be back from prison. Thank you. The artistic quality for this grant, I felt like was very strong. I enjoyed just reading about the opportunities of 3 shows throughout the season. It said that the project had 0 years of occurrence. I didn't know if that meant just because it was new shows or if this had gone on in the past. It reads as it's ongoing year after year. The poster that they attached also seemed appropriate and well done. For community engagement, collaborating with local businesses and using feedback forms seemed appropriate. And it looks like they're working every effort possible to be inclusive within their project and just how it's an affordable project as well. And then in project management, the president of the organization, Heath Klumper, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But I just wanted to know more information. I'm sure Heath is more than qualified. I just wanted to know more about Heath's qualifications and just things that maybe he can offer to the project. And then I thought the timeline and budget seemed appropriate and reasonable. I appreciate the monthly breakdown of events on how things are going to be done just month to month, just to help me understand the project more.
Great, thanks, Scott. And we'll now have our second reader, Michael Innerman, probably stay on mute the entire time, so we won't hear his remarks, but maybe he'll unmute.
There, I accomplished technology today. I agree with everything Scott has said. I did have the question. They only listed it as a first-time project, but the posters do show that it was going on for several years. And I knew about this program up there in Jasper, and I think it's great that a town the size of Jasper pulls something off like this.
Great. So does anyone have any additional new or opposing comments to add for Actors Community Theater? And go ahead.
Well, I thought, let me fiddle with this a minute. Okay, that artists in the production should be counted in the indirect financial benefits section. If they're benefiting from the community exposure they get, they may be better prepared for future roles. It's kind of difficult to determine this because they weren't counted in that section of the grant, and we're supposed to look at how the indirect financial benefit. It would help us to have a number there if there's any way to do that. Also, community engagement. I thought the auditions online as well as in person was a great way to increase the scope of the participation pool. I think that's it.
Great, thanks, Annie. Any other comments from anyone?
Oh, wait, I have one more. The staffing overview is kind of missing the staffing section. The numbers up above, but it doesn't really tell us about who's helping with all that. So it would be helpful in the future. That's it.
Great. Does anyone else have any additional comments? Seeing none, everybody go ahead and update your online comments and your scores, and we'll take a few minutes to do that before we move to our next application. I love the online nature of this. It looks like you're all checking your phones every time. Everybody has to look down and do their keyboard to update their scores and online comments. It's kind of really fun to watch. Our next application that we're going to do is the Warwick Public Education Foundation. I forgot last time I should ask, does anyone have a conflict with this application? No, great. So we'll go ahead, and Annie, you're first on this one.
All righty. Hit the right button here. Okay, and artistic quality. I thought in that section, it wasn't real clear to me if there's an audition process. I assume there is, but it would be helpful if that was stated in the grant. Even though this is a student performance, it would be helpful to know if there's some sort of process to determine that, so you can better gauge the quality of the event. And community engagement, the budget has $7,000 in student fees and income, and the expenses show $1,000 in scholarships. I wondered how much the student fees were per student. It seems like this would be exorbitant because it's not explained. It would be helpful if we knew how many students participate because of scholarships. That would increase access. So that would be helpful. I think that's it.
Great, thank you, Annie. That's very great. Our next reader on this is Jaleesa.
Yes, the only thing I'd like to add, I noted in the community engagement and IDEA narrative that they used information from feedback from participants to look at decreasing the price of tickets so that individuals that did have a barrier to access as far as finances would be able to attend. So instead of doing package pricing, which they noted was difficult in their ticketing system, they were able to reduce the student price. So they took the feedback and implemented in the project.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone else have any new additional or opposing comments to add to the Warwick Public Education Foundation application? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and let you update your online comments and scores, and I'll sing the theme to Oklahoma, where I played Farmer Fred in 1981. You know, everyone watching in Facebook land's really hoping I do that. Okay, so our next grant application that we're going to be looking at is the Northwest Territory Art Guild. That application is going to, our first reader on that is going to be Mike.
Yeah, I'm old fashioned, so I print off all my applications to go through, and this was the thickest application from the printer that I had. Since I do interact with the Vincent State Historic Sites, I've seen some of these pieces around town. The detail I think is great on everything they've included in here. I had the one question early on when I was reading this, were Indiana artists chosen? They do take preference in the jury selection. The jury selection is, or the jury are Indiana artists or local artists to help choose these locations. I also like that there's community programming around these installations. Informal talks are given at the locations. And the other nice thing I thought was that, you know, they include the city of Vincennes. They take the liability issues for the installations, and VU also is involved a lot with this as well. So I thought it was a great program. Like you said, the packet, they've included a lot of photographs and descriptions of the locations. Just all around a good application, I thought.
Great, thank you, Mike. And Scott, you're the second reader on this one.
Yep. So kind of what Mike was saying, just with including Indiana artists, they pointed out they had 3 out of 9 accepted pieces were Indiana artists. So I was curious if they were anticipating more Indiana artists for this year, or maybe what their overall goal was. I thought there was the great examples of work throughout the community. I enjoyed seeing those. Community engagement, collecting data from surveys in the community and citing some of the feedback on the application. And in terms of project management, I thought the timeline seemed reasonable, and as did their budget.
Great, thank you, Scott. Does anybody have any additional new or opposing comments to add to this one? Annie?
Basically, I thought a positive thing was it's often difficult for sculptures that make large scale work to find places to show their work. And I thought this was a great opportunity for that. The other thing, though, was a question about the budget. In the cash income section, it says there are $625 from exhibition entry fees, which is great. And it says how much, but then it says lower that there's an applicant fundraising support. And I don't really understand what that is. I didn't know if that, I mean, it has to be different than artist fees. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just the word applicant fundraising instead of just fundraising support, but it's not clear to me. So I think I'd state that differently or explain it.
Great, thanks. Do we have any additional opposing or new comments to add to that? Okay, seeing no one raise their hand, everyone take your time to update your scores and any online comments. By the way, my 2 solo lines in Oklahoma, we're going to give you barley, carrots, and potatoes, and plenty of room to swing a rope. Go listen to the title song. It is always nice when you can bring joy to a theater producer. Our next one that we're going to be looking at is the Evansville Symphonic Band. And our first reader on that, and well, Liz, this is Liz's first one. Liz, you're on for the first read.
Great. My first comment was that this is obviously directly supporting the work of Indiana musicians, and the project offers a clear goal in artistic support, which is fantastic. I did have some comments under community engagement and IDEA. There is a lot of consideration to the music community in planning for the feedback, but there needs to be a concerted effort to include the audience. It seems very passive in the grant writing. Well, we have a comment box. People need to be told that there's a comment box. There needs to be more active. They need to be more active in trying to get those comments from the community and not just from the musicians who are participating, but it's excellent that they get the musicians' feedback. The timeline shows an understanding of who is expected to complete what task. I thought it was really excellently done, but it does not give a timeline for accomplishing goals. That's really important. The budget is not balanced correctly. It includes in-kind income that maybe should only be listed under in-kind, and maybe consider the budget should only reflect income generated and expenses going out to make that easier to understand, since it is supposed to be the same for income and expenses and it didn't add up.
Great, thank you. And our second reader on this is Annie.
Thank you. I agree basically with our first reader that the music community is served well. I guess I'd like to know, is there access for handicapped or by public transportation? And is there a strategy to reach out those in the community that don't already have an interest in band music? That could just increase your appreciation to a wider sector of the community.
Great, thanks. Does anyone have any new additional or opposing comments for that? I see Kensington's hand up.
Yes, I would like to get some clarification, just for future grants. Under the section for community engagement and IDEA, looking at who is directly impacted by this project and organization, the IAC guidelines state that a direct participant is anyone who will participate in the project in person and not online. And I believe some of the numbers that they were providing included people who were visiting the website to listen to the tracks that had been pre-recorded. So I would just love to see the numbers for the direct impact.
Great, thank you. Any other additional opposing or new comments? Well, if not, then go ahead and update your scores and any of your online comments, and we'll take a few moments to do that. And by the way, I still have the overalls I wore as Farmer Fred in 1981. Next break, I'll go on to my role in Sound of Music.
Can you?
Okay, it looks like everybody looks like I've given everybody a reason to grin once more. Our next grant application is the Victory International Film Festival that's here in Evansville, and our first reader on that is Kensington.
I just feel like I have to address how tickled I am by your running commentary on your theatrical background. So thank you. It's feeding my heart. But moving into this project, I did have some questions. I love that they detailed that the League of Their Own project came out of feedback they received from last year's participants. I thought that was wonderful. I would love to know more about how they pull audience to get ideas for the workshops that they're going to provide. I think that would be wonderful to know if that's something that they're targeting things the audiences want to see. And I'd also love to know if they know at this stage, what will there be any Indiana filmmakers who will be benefiting from this, or are these all films that are coming from outside of the community? I would just love to know if there are more Indiana artists that are being featured in that. I'd also like to know, under community engagement, how do you identify the target audience? And are you serving underserved communities with your film selection? I see there's a nice breakdown of different kinds of films that they have that feature people of color and women and things like that. But does that directly benefit those communities here in the Evansville area? And then jumping down a little bit further, I thought the budget seemed thorough and clear. I'd like a little more information about the supplies and miscellaneous to know what miscellaneous might include, but that's it for me.
Great. And our second reader on that is Liz.
It was mentioned in the grant that they need to do more to increase the diversity of the audience, but I didn't see any ideas or suggestions included in the grant on how to achieve that goal. It's a really important goal, and they need to seek that out, and they need to be more forthcoming in their plans for that. I think perhaps something they could do was to look to other local institutions which are serving these diverse individuals, and they may be a good partner for them. And I think that other than that, Kensington, I think she was good. Right on.
There we go. Do we have any additional opposing or new comments to add to those from Kensington and Liz? Okay, seeing none, everybody take a few moments to update your scores and online comments. I will let our listeners at home know while you do that, that after my turn as featured player Farmer Fred in Oklahoma, I moved on to play Rolf in The Sound of Music. He has a great redemption arc in the play. However, I was a little older.
I want to know if you still fit in overalls.
I do still fit in the overalls.
Oh, yay!
Well, that's just because they were a little big at the time. Okay, with everyone updated their scores, then we'll move on to our next grant application. And for our listeners at home, we'll be waiting, of course, for my discussion of being in Carnival. The next one is Patchwork Central. And our first reader on that's Jaleesa. Welcome back, Jaleesa.
Thank you. Under artistic quality and artist support, I listed the strengths that they're very clear goals, quality research-based program goals, and the experience is tailored around the feedback for the children. Also, a very well-educated staff, volunteers, and interns pulling from the community. They listed, the universities that we have here, that we have in Evansville, for interns, volunteers from the community, et cetera. And later on, they do mention that staff is majority from the community, the surrounding community of Patchwork Central. Under the area of community engagement and IDEA, I listed pulling from the very diverse neighborhood, the connections that they make with community members, receiving that feedback as far as projects, developing them in collaboration with the community. So it's not a project made for the community, but with the community. They address barriers and mention the impact, measure impact with Indiana Youth Institute surveys. So they're utilizing a good deal of research to measure their impact. And in everything that they've done through the grant, you see that they're using research-based, even for the program in itself, to tailor for the children. The project management and budget, again, experienced lead staff for the project. The timeline provides project dates, but not the actual planning. So I'd like to see more information around planning the projects, community outreach, and various other parts of the grant. It talks a great deal about the community outreach that goes on consistently, but specifically for the program, how they utilize that outreach for the planning of the program and for its management. That's what I had listed for the project management, and budget seems, the line items seem to be perfectly fine.
Great, thanks. And Mike's the second reader on this one.
Yeah, Jaleesa nailed all that pretty well. Patchwork Central it's been there 41 years, according to the application. It brings a lot to the neighborhood that it's in, and kudos to them for what they bring to the neighborhood down there.
That's great. Does anyone have any additional new or opposing comments to add to those? Annie?
On the artistic quality section, I think it'd be a little bit easier to gauge if a list or partial list of potential or past unpaid artists were included. A brief statement just concerning their credentials, for example, MFA or work experience, it would help identify ability to be in charge of the project. And artistic support would increase if the unpaid and paid artists would have a show at the Patchwork Central. And I know they don't have lots of space, but I think they would have room to show at least some of the work of the artists, which I thought would be a nice addition. Also, I thought the bilingual part of the marketing package was a great addition. It's a way to include people that aren't usually included.
Great. Thanks so much. Does anyone else have any additional comments? If not, then go ahead and take a few moments to finalize your scores and update any of your online comments. And carousel I was aroused about. I did not know what aroused about was until that show. Well, I'll have to address Paige's question in our next break, because we'll be going on to the EVSC Foundation. For the listeners, that would be the Evansville Vanderburgh School Corporation and their foundation. And the application's first reader for this one is Scott.
Thank you. For artistic quality, I felt like the applicant was very well organized overall. Seems like a wonderful performance opportunity for the youth and just the scale of this production. Most of the staff appears to be Indiana artists. However, I did note that the director was an artist from Illinois. I'm sure they're more than qualified to do this. Seems like they have a lot of experience in the past, and looks like they've also hired him as like a in-house resident within the corporation. So I think that is at least a good positive step. I did like how they are cross-pollinating with USI staff and students, as well as University of Evansville, to help tie in their students as well to the project. I think that's great. Community engagement, leveraging the Old National Theater, which is a great performance venue. And then also piggybacking that onto Old National, the local bank, to help promote everything. And then donating tickets to local nonprofits so that other people can, have access to the performance, I think is awesome. They looks like they stated they're out in the community giving local organizations kind of preview performances before the show to help promote it even more. So I think that is awesome to get just more people, to know about it, that it's going on. And I felt like project management, I think the timeline seemed appropriate. It's a big project. It's going to take a lot of time and effort, and it's a big budget too, but I think it's, I do think it's reasonable.
Great, thanks so much. And our second reader on this is Liz.
Thanks. I definitely agree with everything that's been said so far. My notes also hit on the director being from Illinois. Although there are so many Indiana artists benefiting from participating in the program through the students, they will definitely benefit from having a strong director with lots of experience. And it sounds like this person has been working with this community for a long time. There is a clear plan to include community feedback in regards to the musicals and the cast, which is wonderful. Feels like a true community effort. Including anyone regardless of their school was really important to me, that you don't have to go to EVSC or even one of our public schools in order to participate. Having no student fees is really important. That also opens up the eligibility for participation to anyone. I'm concerned about lack of transportation for these people, students who want to participate and perhaps might have issues getting downtown to Evansville. We do have public transportation, but not outside of the Evansville city. And another thing I was curious about is low-income families who want to attend the show without it being a financial burden. Are there any teasers or rehearsal showings or anything done for low-income families so that they can also participate in viewing the show? I thought the project management seemed right on. The budget's well thought out. It is large, but it reflects the professional nature of the show.
Great, thank you, Liz. Very thorough. Does anyone have any new, additional, or opposing comments to add for the EVSC application? Annie?
Just one thing. When I was looking at the cash income total, I was wondering, you have sponsorships and you have a participation fee. And I wasn't sure what that participation fee is. So I think some clarification in that section would be helpful, because I'm not sure whose participation it is, whether it's the people who are auditioning and coming in and being in the play, or exactly what. So just some clarification would be good.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any additional comments? If not, go ahead and finalize your scores and update any online comments. I'll let everyone know that, in my opinion, my discovery of being a roustabout where you were a fine helper that helped make sure the carnival and/or the circus was properly put together, unlike all of the rides that we all rode at local festivals in the summer in our small towns, put together by people who probably shouldn't have done that. It's a very important part, albeit not large. Okay. Our next item, and I should remind, I do want everyone to remember, if you do have a conflict, please let me know, because I keep forgetting to ask when we move to our next things. I know you'll tell me. But our next application is for the Vincennes University Art and Design Community Workshops. And our first reader on that's Annie. And you are muted, Annie.
Okay. On the first section, I really didn't have any comments in terms of goals. It was sound, and the project description. The artist support, I didn't have questions there. Let's see, the community engagement. I guess I wondered if there was any attempt to attract or inform others that have cultural differences. That's the only thing that I was looking at there. In the project management, it was kind of concerning that Christopher Schneg, I don't know how to say his name, Schnegberger, was the only staff that was listed. And he listed a lot of other responsibilities besides what he's doing on this grant. And it would be very helpful to have a staff overview as well as an idea of the timeline for decisions and planning and evaluation rather than only the timeline of the workshops themselves. It wasn't, it was just hard to tell if they were able to do that. So.
Great, thanks. And our second reader on this one is Kensington.
Okay, under the first section, I wanted to note that the artists that are being featured in the project are not Indiana artists. And since that's an important part of, what the ISC grant is trying to support, I think that's worth noting. The two artists are from Nebraska and Illinois. And it doesn't say that any artists are indirectly benefiting from this. So if we are bringing in people from outside of the community, how will that benefit Indiana artists? I would love more information about that. Jumping down to community engagement. I like there were several ways that the organization listed of collecting feedback for the project. I like that a lot. And then jumping down a little further, the timeline listed shows the events themselves. And I'd love to get more information about the project from conception to execution to support the grant application process. That's it for me.
Great, thank you, Kensington. Does anyone have any new opposing or additional comments they'd like to add on this application? Okay, if we don't have any, go ahead and finalize your scores and update any of your online comments. I'll let our listeners at home or on Facebook know that my most recent theatrical performance was a cameo appearance in Young Frankenstein. I will provide additional information on that during our next scoring break. Okay. Our next grant application, number 10 on our list today, is Historic Newberg Incorporated, and back to Kensington as the first reader on that.
All right. Under artistic quality and artist support, I wanted to note that the dates for the project beginning and ending are a little confusing. It's probably just a typo, but definitely worth proofreading because I had to jump back and forth a few times between the dates and the description to try to discern what the beginning and the end of the project were. I also couldn't get the Google Drive link to work that was listed under supporting materials, so I don't know what was included in that, but I did enjoy hearing the Shepherd Brass clip as an example of the talent that the project will feature. I thought that was a great example of the high quality work we get to hear. Jumping down to community engagement, while it seems like a lot of people attend the events, I don't see how this project serves a diverse audience beyond that some people are coming from outside of Indiana or Newberg. They do mention handicap seating and accessibility, which is great. But I'd like to see how they're targeting more audience members outside of that. How can they diversify their audience and bring more community members in? I also like that they mentioned that the marketing material was in draft form at this time. I think we're only getting, the very rough version of what that should look like. The second social media link that they included was for a private group, so I could not get into that section of the supporting material. Jumping down under project management, I appreciated the thorough timeline. I like that a lot. And I also noticed that you mentioned in this section that all of the acts are local except for the Dancing Under the Stars band, which I did not see clearly stated earlier in the application. So it might be worthwhile to, if nothing else, double up that info up top and then down below as well. It's great to see that Indiana artists are benefiting from the project overall. But overall, cool project.
Great, thank you so much. And Jaleesa, you're our second reader on this one.
I have nothing to add. Kensington did a fantastic job.
There we go. There's a compliment. Does anyone else have any additional opposing or new comments to add on this application? Annie?
I don't really have an opposing comment, but I thought the variety of artists was impressive. Seeing dance, music, and visual art in the same proposal was great. The only thing I could say is it'd be interesting to figure out if there's a way to collect information from the attendees in order to gather information that could help you with for future programming.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any additional comments? If not, then go ahead and finalize your scores online and your online comments. Let everyone know that I played Mr. Underhill in Young Frankenstein. If you have not seen the play or the movie, I suggest you YouTube Mr. Underhill, Young Frankenstein. It was a very important part, small but important. Okay, looks like everybody's got their stuff there. So our next item, our next grant application is the Carver Community Organization in Evansville. And our first reader on that is Mike.
Yeah, this is for a mural to be put on the side of the building there at the Carver Center. And, it touches base on a lot of the components of the community. The senior community will be making the decisions on the submissions from artists about that. That's a nice thing. I had the one question: are the artists going to be drawn from this community? I assume they will be, but that's to me, I didn't find that in there. This has got a lot of great long-term benefits, but then with the long-term benefits, I was wondering about the future maintenance of the mural, how that'll be taken care of. But other than that, yeah, it's a great project. It's a multi-generational project, as they say, to address seniors and the youth of the community.
Okay, and our second reader on that one's Annie. And you are muted, Annie.
In the artistic quality and support area, I wondered if the artists in the community would be from those close to the Carver Center and just in that area, or if the entire community of Evansville would be tapped. I thought both youth and adults would benefit from this interaction between youth, paid artists, and the community interaction between participants in the viewing of the art. I think that's it.
Great, thanks.
Wait, let me go down just a little bit. I might have missed something. Oh yeah, I did. Okay, in the community engagement, a written plan to expand diversity between the policy of not discriminating would strengthen it. I know there's diversity to some extent in that community, but a policy that a written plan would be helpful to let grant readers know exactly what you're talking about. But however, besides that, I think the community of youth, elders, and the variety of programs does diversify participants to a large extent. And a statement about accessibility would be helpful. And if the building was on a bus route, so that those without personal transportation could attend. In the last section, I wondered how many directors would be involved. Only 2 are mentioned, but the words in the grant indicate leadership staff and all directors. So I assume there's more than 2 directors, but that's not clear. So, and there's a line in the line item for travel and accommodations, but I don't remember seeing anything in there that says you're bringing people from outside the community. So I wondered what the travel and accommodations line item was for. That's it.
Okay, does anyone have any additional opposing or new comments to add? Kensington?
I just wanted to seek clarity on 2 sections under artistic quality. I see that there are 2 artists that are referenced as directly benefiting and 2 that are indirectly benefiting. I was trying to understand whether they were counting the artist for the mural twice or whether there were other artists that we just didn't have more information about. So I'd love that clarification. And then jumping down under project management, for the budget that was listed for supplies for the mural, I wanted to know, did they consult with someone about what those supplies are actually going to cost? Since this is a one-time project, I don't know what the budget for something like that should look like, but maybe more of a breakdown or detail of what that really entailed would be helpful just for future grants.
Great. And then Liz?
I also had a comment under project management and timeline. It feels to me like the managers of the project don't have a lot of experience in the art community, and that should be addressed. Somebody working with this project is going to need to assist them in getting the call out to the artists, a promotion date of July 1st, with applications being submitted already August 1st and supplies being purchased immediately after that date. Seems a bit optimistic to me. I have worked on personally a lot of artistic projects, and something large scale like this, I'm assuming, because they don't tell us the size of the mural or the scope of the physical size of what they're trying to do, it's going to take an artist quite some time to actually prepare a proposal for a project that large. And they might need to work on their timeline and push those dates back quite a bit in order to have the best submissions possible for the facility.
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, go ahead and take a moment to finalize your scores and update any of your online comments. During our next break, we'll be discussing my dramatic portrayal of a part in The Miracle Worker. Okay, it looks like everybody's got their scores in. Our next application is for the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art, which is part of the University of Southern Indiana's Outreach and Engagement Department. And our first reader on that's Liz.
Oh, Scott, just I believe that Annie needs to leave for this.
Thank you for that, the conflict. So Annie went away. There we go. Annie is in Facebook prison now. That is for our watchers and our listeners. We make sure that anyone that may have a conflict with any of the applications is not part of the discussion. Go right ahead.
Great. Under artistic quality, I have just a comment that I was really appreciating having a list of the programs that will be covered. It shows preparation and commitment to quality. Under IDEA, specifically number 3, does it include strategies? It would be beneficial to have examples of ways the organization has, quote, focused on inviting and or partnering with targeted groups that potentially could connect to different exhibitions, unquote. I'd like to know what kind of organizations that they've been partnering with and how does it specifically achieve our goals that we want to see with the IDEA. For measuring impact, quantifiable data that pertains directly to the gallery would be nice to have. Surveys, even casual in-gallery surveys would be beneficial. General tourism and social media growth are not indicators of the gallery's success, but general tourism to an area that is already focused on tourism, and I don't feel is going to directly tell us a lot about the impact that these programs are having. Under program management, the budget was a concern for me just because it seems really low for shows of this quality. perhaps the entire budget, because it is part of USI. And I understand that that means that some costs are absorbed in different departments. Maybe they're not direct costs to the gallery and they're indirect costs through the university. And maybe that's how they're able to do these, but the shows seem high quality and the cost seems really low, specifically for the shipping and bringing in the work.
Great, thank you, Liz. And our second reader, and that's Scott.
I felt like it was a good opportunity to engage engage the community. The project seems to indicate they're always trying to engage new audiences. I did notice made a note that there are some artists that are outside of Indiana. However, I also feel like finding sculptors and abstract painters could also be difficult to find. So I think some of that is understanding. Though I'm sure I'm sure these people are more than qualified to do that work. And I like the USI and New Harmony are, that it is an outreach program. They're building off of each other. Community engagement. They stated they have use of newsletters and social media platforms. They seem strong, and the applicant has shown a desire to be very inclusive to its artists and its visitors. And I think that does it. Thanks.
Great. Does anyone have any additional opposing or new comments to add to our first and second readers? Okay, seeing none, why don't you go ahead and take a moment to update your online score and any of your online comments. I'll let you know that I played Annie Sullivan's brother in The Miracle Worker. Many people do not know there's a prologue scene that is not included in the movie. I'll tell you more during our next break. We can now bring Annie back from Facebook prison. There we go. And Annie is back from Facebook prison. There we go. Just want to let you know, those of you watching and those of you on the panel today, we have been going a full hour now. We have another 5 or 6 applications to do. If anyone needs a break as we move forward, just let me know and we can take a quick break if we need to. Otherwise, we'll just move on. Our next grant that we'll be looking at is the Old Town Players, and Jaleesa is our first reader on that one.
Okay. For the artistic quality and support, I noted clear goals, but also noted that there was no information about how the past experiences informed this year's planning. So having that additional information will be beneficial just to see how they're using the input and feedback from the community to continue to evolve. Also, I noted that there's detailed list of the artists making the project possible and providing a quality experience. Having that information was great. But I noted, and we've seen this before, no financial benefit to the artists. I noticed there's volunteer staff, and they did make note of that. But as far as artist support, not seeing any financial benefit for the artists. So it might just be as far as exposure, it might be a benefit. Under community engagement and IDEA, they focus on filling in the gap in the underserved theater community. So increasing access to art within that community. So noting that maybe there aren't that many opportunities for live theater. But then also there's heavy community involvement. Again, they use volunteers and feedback from the community in some of their planning, but would like to see maybe some more along the lines of development. Here, impact measurements are clear. I did note, and I like that they use multiple tools for impact measurement. In project management and budget, very clear and detailed timeline, including pre and post activities that they included in the feedback. That's always beneficial to see that it's really thought out, properly planned. I did list, though, within the budget, when utilizing the format of the grant, their cash income listed did not equal cash expenses. So just making note that possibly in the future, the format that they use to include their cash income, they also had line items for in-kind amounts as well. So maybe having that separate just to give a better or clear picture of their financials, so there isn't really any question in that area.
Great, thanks. And Kensington, your second reader on this one.
I actually am in agreement with everything our first reader said and thought she broke that down beautifully.
There we go. Does anyone else have any new opposing or additional comment they'd like to make on this application? Annie?
The only thing in the budget section, it seems like the cash income box should include the grant, which it doesn't. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone have any additional comments? If not, go ahead and you can update your scores and your online comments. The prologue scene that I starred in allowed me to die on stage legitimately, as opposed to the way I usually died on stage, which was just being bad. I died of tuberculosis in Annie Sullivan's lap, leading her to a life of helping others.
What a way to go.
What a way to go. And you know, nothing like getting to die in the first 2 minutes of a play.
Just take a nap backstage.
There you go. Wait for my curtain call. Now that we've got our scores updated, our next grant application that we're going to be looking at is the Koch Family Children's Museum of Evansville, sometimes referred to as SEMO. And Mike is going to be our first reader on that one.
I mean, this is a fairly easy one. They've been doing this project for 10 years. I see this year will be the 16th anniversary of the museum being in the location that it's at. Artist in Residence program, got a proven track record. They collaborate with the Philharmonic and the Children's Center for Dance Education, the Arts Council, what have you. And there's a free component for the low-income families in the community, which is nice. So no, I don't have anything negative to say here. I'm very
Great.
Positive today on this one.
You're always positive, Mr. Learman. And our second reader on this one's Jaleesa.
I just made note in the area of artist support that artists may be from the tri-state or beyond. We didn't really have that information to know if Indiana artists in particular would benefit from the project. I know that they, in the application, they bring in multiple artists for programming, but it lists, 3 artists that will be directly involved. So just maybe some clarification in that area. We know that they'll be financially provided for.
Great, thanks. And does anyone have any additional new or opposing comments to make? And Kensington's got her hand up.
Under community engagement, I love that the museum put together the IDEA committee, and I'd like to know how that board has specifically impacted this particular program. I think it's great that they're being intentional. I'd like some more specificity around it. And then underneath project management, hold on, gotta jump all the way down. Underneath project management, I'd like to hear more about Mr. Gillen's qualifications in addition to the information provided, but overall an impactful project.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any additional comments? Liz?
My only addition is that I felt the timeline didn't have enough information, specifically the planning that goes up to the project. It would be nice to see more information on that. Also, 5% of the staff's time to research and implement this feels a little low. And I'm wondering, and that was included in the budget, and I'm wondering about that figure.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any additional comments? Okay, if not, go ahead and update your scores and your online comments. Okay, and with that, we'll move on to our next application. Our next application, number 15, is Stage 2 Productions, and our first reader on that's Annie.
Okay. In the engagement section, I thought participation figures seemed a bit high. There was an explanation of overlap, but I'm not sure you're supposed to count it that way. The use of puppets really increases the possibility of a wider variety within age, race, disability of participants. And the show also appeals to an often neglected audience. And that's really all I about had.
Okay, Annie, our second reader on this is Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, I like how not only is it puppets, which makes it kind of fun, but that they're reusing some of USI's equipment. And I know that the theater community is just really great at always repurposing old props and stuff. So I think that's great that they made a note that they're going to be doing that and kind of collaborating with USI on that part of the project. The evidence in the video looks like it's a very high level performance, and looks like everyone is very engaged, including the audience. And then I also had for community engagement, the group appears to have a great understanding of serving the community, or for anyone that asks to kind of be a part of that. The applicant says they pull their volunteers and audience members to determine future shows, which I think is also a great resource. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Scott. Does anyone have any new additional or opposing comments to add to that of Annie and Scott? Okay, if not, go ahead and update your online scores and your any online comments. As we move forward, my last theatrical performance will be from the Nutcracker. Okay, I'm seeing Annie disappear into the grass. And she returned. Annie, that background, it literally looks like you walk into a forest. It's like so cool.
I'm sorry, someone was at the door, so I had to run. So I didn't hear what you said.
No, I said you look like you were disappearing into the forest. It's such a cool background. For those of you who are listening, you can't tell, but she's got a really cool background on her Zoom box. We'll move on to our next one, which is number 16, the Foundry Center for the Arts. And our first reader on that one is Liz.
Under the first section of artistic quality, I would like to hear some information on the types of programming. An example or two of crafts or projects that have been done or planned to be done would just help us really understand what they're planning on doing. The statement of purpose is good, but not thorough. Survey information is vital, but how that information is being used to influence future programming could be expanded. Under community engagement, I love the surveying that they're doing with the children and how they're doing that. I think that's incredibly appropriate. I would like to know if the caregivers or parents or adults involved are also being surveyed to see if they're also seeing these things at home with these children, because they're definitely going to be witness to that more than anyone else involved in the program, especially since they talk about addressing behavior changes of some children who have maybe a little behavior issues in school or things like that. If this is truly helping and benefiting them, that would come out through parental surveys. Project timeline budget are informative and succinct. I thought it was a good amount of information.
There we go. And Mike's our second reader on this one.
Yeah, the only question I have, I see that they're a faith-based organization. I wanted to know kind of how that's incorporated into the programming there at the organization. But that's all the rest of it was really good.
Great. So does anyone have any additional opposing or other comments to add to that of Mike and Liz?
I was looking at the artistic qualities area, and I thought that they made a statement saying we found through surveying that we have positively influenced their ability to improve mental health and be creative. And I just thought that it would really strengthen the grant to include a link to some sort of academic research. It doesn't have to be some long thing, but that would support the statement, because as an educator, I know a lot of people, say, well, it's going to make them more creative and improve mental health, but it really helps if there's some sort of background in terms of how that works. And when stating your goal, saying that this is a mobile program, it's not clear to me whether the bus is used only to transport the kids only, or if the bus picks up the kids, or if it takes them to a venue in their neighborhood. It just needs a closer explanation, or more accurate. In the community section, again, it would be helpful to state which areas you're visiting and why that's diverse. And I thought the total of students served maybe was, you said that it was 40 students, and then you counted it, I think, 3 times. I wondered if the same 40 students were counted as separately. I'd like to know what the fee for the program is. It does show up, I think, eventually, but it doesn't show up until the budget, and it would help to be in that section. And if there's any scholarships or reduced fees since you're going into these areas. That's it.
Okay. Anyone have any additional or opposing comments? Okay. If not, go ahead and take a few minutes to update your online score and your online comments. My first role in the Nutcracker was playing the butler with the saucy maid. And the saucy maid got better choreography. Okay, with your scores updated, we'll go on to our next final application today, and that's from Vincennes University, Humanities and Film Lecture Series. And Scott's going to be our first reader on that one.
Yeah, so artistic quality, I felt like the application was very thorough and maybe almost too thorough in a couple of places. It was a fun way to incorporate more of the community with the local restaurants and chefs. I did have a question, probably because it just sounded like I like food, but are the chefs cooking at this thing, or are they going to bring samples or not? I wasn't sure for a second. I thought they were, and then maybe they weren't. So I don't know if anyone else on the panel interpreted that another way, but regardless, I think that's a really cool spin on on the project. Community engagement. Very committed to reaching many different areas of the community. They're using several media outlets and are very intentional using the local campus media outlets as well. Of course, they're using social media, but I did wonder if maybe they were ready. It didn't say if they had like their own maybe Facebook page, group, something, rather than kind of giving it to, the Vincennes University people to kind of do that for them. So especially if it's an ongoing project, that might be something for them to consider going forward. just to have like maybe a landing spot for everybody year after year. And then I liked that the transportation part, I thought that that was a nice touch. Project management and budget, I appreciated the series schedule. I was just looking to see if they could show more of the planning timeline. It just kind of showed, you know, here's when this event is and here's when that event is. So just wondering what other, you know, planning steps were there beforehand, just to kind of make that a little more detailed and just get more information. You know, similar to the beginning half of the application, because it had a ton of information. And I felt like the budget was reasonable.
Great, thanks, Scott. And Annie, you're our second reader on this one. And you are muted.
The post-screening panel of food on the go is a great way to include disparate parts of the society and helps create meaning to a range of audiences. Everybody eats, you know, and so it's great. And not everybody thinks of themselves as interested in art. So this sort of creates a way to reach those people. There is exposure and a stipend for the panel. However, it doesn't use artists or Indiana artists other than the original film crew. So it might be nice to include an artist on a panel. In the project management section, again, the timeline doesn't address the planning of the event, and that would really help to make us understand how much you're thinking about it, other than, you know, just having the dates and times of the project itself.
Okay, does anyone have any additional new or opposing comments to add to that of Scott and Annie?
I just had one comment in the community engagement area. I just noted that information was provided about previous year's projects, about their outreach to some underrepresented communities. And I noted that a little bit more clarity or information about how this year's project might have the same or similar outreach, even if they added a line that said we'll continue with this type of outreach, but it just noted that in the past and previously what they've done. So just noting, you know, what they're doing for this project or what they've implemented to continue and sustain that type of outreach.
Great, thank you so much. Anybody have any additional comments? Okay, go ahead and update your scores and your online comments. We'll have, I believe, two more. One, and then one after that, according to my last message. Okay. So we will have as our next one, number 18, the Working Men's Institute. And our first reader of that is Kensington.
Okay. I thought the provided artistic examples under the first section of the grant were lovely. It was a little difficult to read because, at least whenever I opened it on the computer, the pictures were overlapping the captions. So I had to infer a little bit of what it said, but pictures were lovely and very supportive of what the project is trying to do. Under community engagement, I was very tickled by the marketing material because it referenced that the class was for people of a certain age. I thought that was cute and funny and engaging, and would definitely bring in people of a certain age. And then underneath the project management, I love that Peggy Taylor's credentials and experience were detailed so nicely, and I would love to see more of that for Ryan and Shannon as well. And then underneath the budget, I don't see the IAC grant request specifically listed. I think that they're listing it under total cash income. I mean, I guessed for what we were going for there, but for the sake of clarity, it's worthwhile just to kind of double check it and make sure that it's easy to read for panelists. And that's it for me.
Great, thanks so much. And our second, and by the way, this is our last one. I apologize for that. Our next reader on this one is Liz.
Overall, I agree with what Kensington has said. I was a little confused in the first part because the grant states that this is a new project, is not done before, but that is a continuation of an existing project. I'd like to see a little elaboration on that. Exactly when did the last project finish? Is this really, or when is it going to finish? Is this going to finish the original project? If they plan on continuing to do this, it's no longer a continuing project, but a project that is reoccurring. And so that was a little confusing to me. Let's see here. Under marketing, I also saw the weaving for a certain age, and I really enjoyed that, but they mentioned that this is for seniors, adults, and children under the age of 18. So the marketing should reflect the narrative. And I feel like the narrative states it's for everyone. And I felt like the marketing was very much geared towards seniors. So that also confused me. It just needs to be clarified. I would like to see more on idea strategies and include more regarding the lack of arts education and opportunity with the school closed. In this section as well, they mentioned that the school was closed, but not really how that's affected the community and how this would help bring arts education to children under 18. It would be nice to hear about. Oh, the narrative mentions visiting studios, but as seniors and children involved, is the accessibility of these spaces available to the people participating? I know New Harmony is very walkable, but it doesn't talk about how people are going to get there. Are they walking tours? Are they needing to drive? Do they have transportation to get to those? That's concerning to me. Project management, I thought the staff seemed knowledgeable. They seem to really understand what they're doing. Having an artist on the main staff really made me help feel that the project would run more smoothly. The timeline is sufficient, but lacking some detail to round out some of the information. And the class seems very popular. It looks like a good program.
Great, thank you, Liz. Does anyone have any additional opposing or new information to add to this application? Okay, seeing none, take a few moments to do your online comments and update your score. Let everyone know my last performance was as Mother Ginger for 3 years in the Nutcracker. It's always wonderful to play a giant cookie jar.
A giant mommy cookie jar.
Yes, absolutely. So, by the way, as facilitator of this panel, I've done many of these panels, and this was excellent work. And for those of you who are watching on Facebook, or for those of you who review this recording later, hope you appreciate the detailed analysis that this panel put in reading all of these applications and ensuring that the applicants had a thorough review of their application that was related to the criteria that the Indiana Arts Commission puts forth to try to improve and make arts available for everyone, every day, everywhere in Indiana. Special thanks as well to Ann McKim, who runs the Arts Council here in Evansville for our region, as the Region 10 Arts Partner. So this concludes the Arts Project Support Region 10 panel. Applicants will be notified of the status of their grant application following the June meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission. If you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to Ann McKim, our Region 10 Arts Partner at the Arts Council in Evansville. So with that, the public portion of this program is now concluded. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who did, or if you're watching this recorded, we hope you enjoyed it. Good afternoon or good morning.